Hey guys, so Civil War. Just watched this movie and wanted to make a review on this, put my 2 cents into what I thought about this movie. And honestly, I was kind of excited when this movie was first announced. Definitely was an interesting story that would have been told here about factions between in the U.S. where it's literal civil war and shit. That sounds interesting because this sounds really close to what it is in reality. That it could happen. And so a movie about that, interesting, right? See what's the perspective on it. So I came into this movie thinking that it was gonna be about that more, and clearly it's not. Choosing a side, right? Whether it was, there's no choosing sides right here in this movie. It was really more of a perspective of what's already happening. So we don't know why it happened, what caused it, and why it's ending. Sort of. Clearly, the president in this movie has given up and just wants to leave, wants to go away and shit, right? So in this one, we're in a perspective through a journalist, a photographer, um, taking pictures of just what's happening, giving the most new, I think, an interesting perspective. But I think they did not pull it right, with being very as sort of neutral as possible, with just showing what's happening, but not telling you as the audience who to choose or why be against what's happening. You're kind of just there on a ride through the whole movie with these photographers trying to have an interview with the president. Have these crazy scenarios within the movie of what's going on. By the time of the movie, and I think the best thing about this movie was definitely the sound effects, the shooting aspect, and the moments of that was very tense. That was really good. I have to admit that was really good. I was gripped to that. But in terms of story, there was not much to tell and kind of lacked anything else but the characters we were following. And I feel like this was a missed opportunity to having a really good, interesting talk of a story to have. But in the end, it did nothing really to advance or tell a story of the politics in this movie, and it just kind of just lingered on nothing. It was kind of baseless from the start to the end, and then this whole thing about kind of fails as a movie because it doesn't know how to end by the end, and it's like, oh, it just ends like that. I'm like, wow, it was so anticlimactic when it could have been interesting. When the best thing was the action, but then it fails as a story, and I was so confused. Like, I wanted this to work, but it failed, and really wanted me to have a good grip on what's happening. When at the end, it's just not. It was just not a story that was being told right. In terms of the context to why it's happening. Like that alone was a big red flag to this movie, and unfortunately, that made this movie fail in its own right. Like, damn it, we could have had a really good movie here, based on if the U.S. had a civil war in modern times. That sounds like a great premise, but failed in that, with nothing happening in terms of that politics being in it. Like, yes, we could have had so many conversations behind the scenes of what the president could have was saying. Like, oh, these guys, they don't understand. We'll just drop nukes or something. And then we go to the perspective of the California and Texas team. That was the two groups, states that were really united in all this. They would have, like, what was their reason to be even collabing, and stuff like. But they never tell you anything. They're just there with the characters taking pictures, and then by the end, that interview we were promised did not have did not was baseless. It was wow, that was your interview. Like, nah, dude. You kind of just wasted our time then with all that. But the one thing they had me going in this movie was that interview, and I was like, oh, yeah, no. So that was a complete fail for me. Um, but the acting was great. When they were taking those pictures, they had real motive though, which was great. I liked that. But again, the story just wasn't there, and so they do half the things right because it looked great. The action was great, fantastic. The photography, and while you're in it, just behind as just a journalist behind the fighting and shooting and everything, that was really cool. I like that stuff. But at the end, the story that it could have told and should have been told wasn't there to make a really interesting movie to recommend. And it was just baseless by the end of this. And so for that, I have to give this a 5 out of 10 for how interesting this could have been and what we did get. I liked, but also disliked because nothing happened really. But what you see in the end, and it's like, wow, kind of a waste, in terms of if you just want if you just want to watch people shooting, fine. But if you were here for a story, it's half told, and it's unfortunate because there's a missing piece to this that would have made this a fantastic movie. And so for that, until next time, Amore out.